Goodness gracious me, it's all kicking off, guys. So, two things. Number one, Japan. There is a credit card operator called Aplus who have now included XRP as part of their reward program. You know how you can get cash back with a credit card? Now you can get XRP on an Aplus credit card when you spend as a reward. And it's not just XRP, there's also Ethereum, I think. But yeah, they partnered with SVI, or the most bullish organization, apart from Ripple themselves when it comes to XRP, to do this. So there are going to be people in Japan who are suddenly going to hold XRP just for, I don't know, buying a refrigerator or something like that, which is absolutely huge, man. Because when that becomes successful and people see that 1 minute they bought a refrigerator, they got some kind of tokens as reward, and then this token down the line becomes worth more than the refrigerator that they bought. It kind of reminds me of people that got Solana after buying the Bonk phone. Remember that? And then the Saga phone, they got Bonk as a token, and then the Bonk was worth more than the actual phone itself after a while. Something that similar. So that's quite interesting. So shout out to Japan. That's some kind of milestone when it comes to adoption. Yeah, shout out to Japan. The second one, which is actually more crucial, is that Garlinghouse, man, the gloves are rough. Originally, and I've actually spoken about this before, I believe that Garlinghouse was targeting some kind of cooperation with SWIFT, some kind of integration into the system, working together hand in hand. But apparently, it looks like, never mind ISO 20022 and compatibility and linking together and all that sort of stuff, and being on the messaging layer and replacing the infrastructure, Ripple is going after the liquidity layer. And part of that is also related to their licensing application to be a bank, because banks control the liquidity layer. And Garlinghouse reckons that in just 5 years, they can capture about 14%, that's the target anyway, of SWIFT's current volume. I don't think you guys have any idea how large that is. SWIFT is the global conglomerate that is moving trillions of dollars a year right now. And capturing 14% of that, that's crazy. So where do you come in, and why this is huge for us XRP holders is two things. First of all, Garlinghouse is touting XRP as the core of all of this, not RLUSD, because the liquidity is going to be handled by On-Demand Liquidity, ODL. And this is XRP. And XRP is the neutral currency that is going to facilitate the kind of volume we're talking about. And this is where market cap goes directly out of the window, because a lot of people think about the price of XRP reaching these crazy amounts, $100, $1,000, whatever it is that people are saying. And they look at the market cap in the traditional way. But XRP being just like the flow, right? It's the bridge currency. It's the one that facilitates the liquidity demand. XRP is the one that removes the third party or counterparty risk, right? There's no need to stash up funds in foreign currency. Let me give you an example. Let's say you wanted to transfer or you wanted to form a remittances company, right? And you want to move money from the UK to the US and back. Now, you have an office in the UK, you have an office in the US, and a transmission line in between. Now, in the United States, you have to stash dollars and pounds. Here in Britain, we have to stash dollars and pounds, and we have to have that in hand to hand over to people who come to do the swaps. And we have to continually ship actual currency to each other. Obviously, now there are digital ways of doing that by just typing in zeros and ones and delivering the actual money at a later date, which is why settlement sometimes takes a while. It's not instant. It's expensive because these things have to be physically moved into across borders internationally. Again, we can type in zeros and ones because these papers don't actually mean much, but they're still traditional pipelines through which these things have to pass. But now with on-demand liquidity, nobody has to stash any amount of money, especially when it comes to more obscure currencies. Now, there's a lot of liquidity in cable, right, which is USD, GBP, right, traditionally. But when you're talking about something like, I don't know, some obscure currency, the South African rand, or even something more obscure, some currency I don't even know, and say rubles, right, Russian rubles, and whatever it is the spend in, say, Madagascar, for Malagasy money, whatever that is. I actually don't know. Shout out to anyone who says what it is in the comments. How much rubles can they stash in Madagascar, and how much Madagascar money can they stash in Russia? And can we stash the same maybe in the US or in the UK? As you can see, the more countries are involved, the more difficult this becomes. More third parties are involved, fourth parties, fifth parties, more counterparties that now put the stash money at risk. That money has to be immobile and just sitting there in case somebody wants to transfer or not. But with on-demand liquidity, it's a neutral currency. XRP is neutral. It's just what bridges whatever currency to each other. And that's your XRP that's doing this, with the various ODL engines that are going to be switched on, where you can deposit your stash into these pots to earn passive income. So there's a lot of passive income utility that is coming to you and your stash of XRP. Yes, I know the people telling me that I'm dumb if I sold 90% of my stash at $100 because it's only just the beginning. But personally, you don't know how much XRP I own, right? So maybe 10% of my XRP is just fine to sit in some ODL pool somewhere, generating me passive income. I'm pretty happy with that. So Brad is going nuclear, bro. He's thinking about absolutely taking on the actual liquidity layer, which is something that I knew they were going for, but not quite in the scale. They're looking to replace it eventually. And 5 years capturing 14% would only accelerate after that. So it wouldn't take another 5 years to take another 14%. So in 10 years, it's not going to be 28%. They could just take 14% in the first 5 years, and then the next 2 years take 50%. Unless, of course, SWIFT sees the writing on the wall and starts making moves right now, which they are. This is why SWIFT and JP Morgan and all those guys are scrambling around, working with Chainlink, doing these tests and, payments across borders, trying to develop their own way of doing this a little bit cheaper. But I think it's going to be inevitable. There will be alternatives, obviously. There will be, I hope that Ripple doesn't become a monopoly and doesn't absolutely dominate, because we do need companies that are going to be able to hold the fire to their feet so that they don't become too powerful and become tyrants or what have you. But, also we don't want, the whole world's financial payments infrastructure to be under one company, right? I do hope that SWIFT does survive and upgrade into the blockchain. But I think, just 14%, I think that's enough to provide enough liquidity. Oh, there's just a dinosaur or something, or a dragon. Did you hear that? It's a weird sound. Everyone's looking up now. Very strange. Some Game of Thrones stuff. Dracarys. Anyway, yeah, so 14%, looking forward to that. That's going to be absolutely juicy. Not financial advice, guys. Bro, it's going to be hot.